Hi, everyone. I'm going to be doing a little podcast today with a very special guest, and her name is Brittney Kaiser, and I'm waiting for her to join us here. So hopefully I'll see her. Now, Brittney, I'll give you a little background on her. She's the one who you may have seen was very well known because of what happened with Cambridge Analytica. And she ended up becoming very famous over that whole thing because basically she was the one who kind of whistle blew, and it ended up in the media all over the place. It was like a really, really big deal. So just waiting for her to join here. And someone says they're hello from Cambridge. Hi everyone. So hopefully she'll be joining us any second now. I should be able to see her when she joins. But we're going to talk about data today, data sovereignty, and what's going on with data in the world, and why it's such a challenge today, because everyone's data is just sort of getting taken, and they don't even know that it's being taken. So let me see here. Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. Let me just see where Brittney is. All right, just hold on one second. I'm going to see if I can catch her on my other phone. Okay, so I'm trying to reach her just in case. I want to go to Egypt with you. Okay. All right, red pill. By the way, for those that are interested in Egypt, you should know we got a bunch of applications already, and we're just kind of going through those applications, and we'll be contacting you very soon on whether or not you're approved to be able to come on the trip with us. So very excited. I'm on right now. So very excited for this trip. I think it's going to be so super cool. And we've got such an amazing agenda planned for everybody. It's I'll just kind of walk through it a little bit. We're going to spend the first few days in Giza, where of course we're going to do all the things in Giza. And on the full moon on October 20th, we actually have all of the three pyramids open for the third time in history all night for our private experience. And I've spent 5 nights in the Great Pyramid. If you haven't done it, I highly recommend it. It's not something you'll find on Airbnb, so it's definitely worth doing it. Will you find the treasure in the Sphinx? Last time I went to Egypt, I actually got to go under the Sphinx. It was barricaded inside, and so you couldn't really see very far, but Jamie Janover and I both were able to go in, and it was a pretty cool experience, I have to say. So it was pretty fun. But we will be doing that again, probably, but only a very small group of people will be able to do it on this trip. But we're doing the whole night in the Great Pyramid and also in the other 2 pyramids, and it's an amazing experience. I mean, those chambers are so incredible because the chamber resonates so powerfully. The speed of sound is only 343 meters per second in air, but through granite it's 6,000 meters per second. So sound travels at 17 and a half times faster than outside, when you're inside that chamber. So it really is a powerful resonance chamber. So I highly recommend you, if you're unable to go on this trip, I highly recommend going at some stage and experiencing that, and laying in the sarcophagus and experiencing what it's like to be in there. It is just an amazing, life-changing experience. It incredibly changed my life. I don't think I'd be doing even a fraction of the things that I'm doing today if it weren't for that experience in the Great Pyramid. So okay, so Brittney sent a request. So let me see if I can find her here. So maybe, Brittney, you can send a request again, because I'm not seeing it on here. So if you could send it again, Brittney, then I will patch you in. Here we go. Okay. Select questions to answer. No, that's not it. So Brittney, go ahead and try that again. So Rastafari, aloha. Okay, good to meet you all. So Robin, if you're watching also, I'm not seeing Brittney's request on here. So let's see. Yeah, no, not seeing it yet. All right. Hi from Croatia. Hello. Wanted to brush up on sacred geometry, mathematics. Do you have a book to recommend? Yes, I do. I'm not sure if it's a brush up book, but I have a new book, and I want to say also that the book is now in print. So we decided to go all the way to print with this. We were going to do pre-order and everything, and then we decided not to do the pre-order situation. We're just going to go straight into print. And I'm supposed to get the book copy to review one last time in print. Super excited about this. Took a little longer because I had a bunch of new discoveries in the last few days and weeks, as you've been seeing. I've been posting them, and we wanted to get all of them into the book. So it's been, hold on one second. There we go. Let's see. So at Own Your Data, let's see if I can find this then. Here it is. There we go. All right, well, hopefully she'll be coming through any second now. But anyway, related to the book is Philomath, and it will be available next week. So sorry for the delay, but basically there we go. There she is.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hi, Brittney, how are you?
Hey Robert, I'm great. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So good to see you.
You too, absolutely.
I love your hat. It's a beautiful color blue.
Thanks very much. Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. Is that where you are right now?
Yeah, indeed it is.
Wow. So that's where you're doing kind of like COVID experience.
Yeah, I was in California for a little while, and when I realized that they weren't going to let us get back to business, I had to leave.
Well, I already gave you a full lead in and everything, and told everybody, you know, they can see you in films and everything. And you know, you've had such an amazing career and life. Can you just say a little bit about your background before Cambridge Analytica, and you know, what led you to working in that, you know, type of a role, and then what you do now?
Yeah, absolutely, of course. So so great to be here with everyone. Thank you everybody for tuning in. My name is Brittney Kaiser, and today I call myself a data rights activist. But I used to call myself just a human rights activist. I spent most of my career studying to become a human rights lawyer in the United Kingdom, and working for a lot of human rights organizations, NGOs, and charities that were working to protect people's basic rights and individual rights. And it was through that type of work that I actually ended up learning enough about technology to feel that it wasn't just law, but it was technology that I really wanted to spend a lot of time in. And it was because all the campaigning technology, being able to use social media, being able to understand how to do data-driven campaigning to get people to actually care about some of the causes that I was campaigning about. That's really how I got into tech in the first place. And so when I joined a company called Cambridge Analytica, it was actually because I was trying to figure out how to use advanced predictive algorithms in order to become a better campaigner. So obviously, the more you know about people, the more it's easier to obviously then create targeted communication. Some people call this micro-targeting. And I first learned that on President Barack Obama's first presidential campaign. And so what we were trying to do was see how we could get people to actually care enough about politics to register to vote early, to become a part of our campaign, to actually show up to events and to mobilize their communities. And it worked so well. I mean, I was part of the new media team. We were the first people to invent social media strategy, the first people to use data on social media to galvanize people around a campaign. I really thought, wow, this is the way of the future. So it was a couple of years later where I joined Cambridge Analytica, trying to figure out how I could learn how to use these tools. And it wasn't too long after I was there when I started to realize, wow, the personal data industry is a violation of human rights. Most individuals have absolutely no idea how much information is available about them. I'm working at this small tech startup, and all of a sudden I realize we have access to the personal information of nearly anyone all around the world. But especially in the United States, the amount of information that we had access to on people. And we're a small company in London. So how much information did big companies have on everyone? And it really started to get me thinking that the way that the personal data industry works, the way that technology works, is not actually in line with personal rights and freedoms. And so since I became a whistleblower over 3 years ago, I have been specifically working to help reform the data industry and reform especially the way that not just social media companies, but big tech in general, the way that technology companies can access our information, and to write new legislation and regulation around that. So helping our lawmakers understand how technology works enough to make sure that we can have that in line with individual rights and freedoms, but also to raise awareness and bring that education level, that digital literacy level, to make sure that people are a lot more aware of how technology works and can make better, more, I suppose, privacy by design choices in the technology they use. And that's why I work with technology companies as well, to make sure that they understand what they can do to better inform people about how technology works, to be more transparent, to give people that opt-in, that consent, those mechanisms to decide what they want to do or what they don't want to do when using technology. Because I think everyone can agree, for the past couple decades, we've only been taught how to use technology, but not actually how it works, which is why we're not usually very well informed on how much of our information we're giving away every day. But I think there's definitely a lot to hope for. There's a lot going on in this space, especially with a lot of the projects that you're working on, Robert, that are going to give people more power, and empowering people to make those choices about their own privacy and decide what they want to do with their data, I think is really where the future is going.
So, that must have been a really tough thing for you to do, to be a whistleblower, right? And to stand up for what you believed in. Can you kind of take us through the calculus, I guess, of what that entailed, and all the thoughts that must have been kind of racing through your mind at that time? I can't even imagine. So, I mean, and it's become so high profile. So, it speaks to some courage deep within, right? So, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Of course. Becoming a whistleblower is definitely one of the scariest things I've ever done. I hope I'm not faced with that type of decision in the future. A lot of people who become whistleblowers describe this as a crisis of conscience, which is, you have no idea what's going to happen to you if you decide to report on something wrong that your company's done. A lot of well-known whistleblowers don't have freedom of movement. They can't either leave their house or the country that they're in. A lot of times they go to prison or they lose their job. A lot of times they're targeted physically and threatened. And in general, it makes their life a lot harder. Or they even lose their life in some situations. And so when you decide to blow the whistle on something, which for those of you that don't know what that actually means, it means to bring it means to bring original information to either journalists or to investigators, to government officials, that proves that a crime has been committed. So that's what the official whistleblowing process is. And so for me, that was bringing a copy of my work computer to government officials and saying, hey, I really think that, you know, there were data protection laws that were violated. I think that there were election laws that were violated. And when you take that step, it's unlikely to do something good for you. It's likely to make your life incredibly difficult. So the crisis of conscience concept means that you're really, you know, jumping off a cliff without a parachute and hoping that you land safely. But you're going to jump regardless because it's good for the world if you do. You're doing it for the greater good, and you hope that people will have mercy on you because you've been involved in something that you are saying is either unethical or unlawful. And that's the scariest part. You know, I go through this in my book, Targeted. Also, if you've read Edward Snowden's book, there's this part where you kind of consider, hey, like, I have all of this information, but what if people think that I'm the person that broke the law? What if people blame me for the organization that I'm a part of? What do I do? And it's like, well, you know, some people are going to blame me for being there and being a part of that company or that organization or that government department, but I have information that could change the world. So I'm just going to do it and hope for the best. And for me,
well, there you go. There you go. I mean, and
yeah.
I'm sure, did you expect the level of interest? And for those of you that are just joining, just to bring you up to speed, this is Brittney Kaiser, and Brittney is a very well-known whistleblower that was the center, you know, right at the very center of the maelstrom that occurred related to Cambridge Analytica in its work that it was doing with data analytics on grabbing, you know, data and accessing data of all the people on social media in particular. And I asked Brittney to be on today because she's a very interesting person who has exhibited a great deal of courage to step forward and do what she did. And you've even testified in front of Congress and everything on this very topic. And I think it's something that most people don't even realize has been happening, right? I mean, that's probably one of the biggest challenges, that people don't even know. They think that everything is, you know, we in our world have become so used to trading control for convenience. And we get suckered into it. It kind of reminds me of this. I saw somebody had posted on Facebook yesterday this rat trap. It was like this big rat trap where they just poured food in the rat trap, and it was like a glass box or maybe plexiglass or something, and the rats would all climb inside the box, and there's a chute that they go in and they fall in, and there's like 100 rats, and all the rats go into this box, right? And then they eat all the food, and then they start looking around going, how do we get out of this box? And they're stuck. And every rat that was on the outside, right, basically went inside the box, because after a while, the one or two rats that were outside are like, I don't want to be left alone, right? I want to at least be with my friends. And then they're all stuck in this box, right? And this kind of reminds me of what's happened to a certain extent with what's happening in the world of data right now. We're all sort of stuck. We don't even know that we've been stuck or how to unstick ourselves, right? And we just think it's great because there's free food. Somebody poured the free food into the box, right? And you know, this is a real issue, because at some stage, how do we unblur the lines of our own identity, right? How do we? Because I've been a subject of identity theft. I've had my identity stolen, right? It is not a fun thing to deal with. You call the police department is like, well, we don't do that. You want to call the FBI for this? Really? I mean, it doesn't really work. So there needs to be a system that can help protect consumers, and not something that's based on fear, but actually one based on empowerment. And so one of the things that I had felt very strongly in the early days of creating a new encryption platform is that encryption is going to be something that's so important to each and every one of us. Our own DNA at some time is probably going to have to be encrypted too, because otherwise we'll get cloned. But the sum total of our data now has become, in a way, another image of who we are as human beings, right? Our memories, our experiences, our everything, our photographs, our videos, all of this is going to get collected up. And either we're going to be able to have control over it ourselves, or someone else is going to take it. And how do we then prove who we are at some point in, some bizarre future? So this is where in the early stages of founding Crown Sterling, I decided to reach out to Brittney, because I knew she was facing a lot of these types of issues. And I wanted us to be standing for sovereignty, back to the individual for data. And one of the things we did, and so I've worked with Brittney now for a couple of years, and one of the things that we did is that we came up with our own data sovereignty Bill of Rights. And what we believe should be sort of like the way that the world looks at data. And the basic thesis of this is that we believe that digital assets are the intangible personal property of original producers, right? Not of these corporations, not of, the FBs or the Gs, or you can fill in the rest of the words, right? Not of these corporations, but of us as individuals. And therefore, it's protected by the United Nations in its Charter and Declaration of Human Rights, as well as the Fourth and Fifth Amendments of the U.S. Constitution. And this is something that we worked on together with a group. And maybe, Brittney, you could kind of talk about that process and why we decided to come out with our own Bill of Rights for data and declare that it's the same as personal property.
Exactly. And so for all of the people that are listening, I think it's important that you guys understand that although we lead nearly a completely digital life, we don't have a lot of rights in terms of protecting ourselves when we're using technology. Especially in the United States, there's not too many federal laws that we can call upon that have specifically been designed to protect our privacy, to protect our data. Obviously, there are different states and different courts that have had good decisions along privacy or data protection, or that say that we have some sort of ownership, or there are some rights that we have as consumers when using technology, but it's not spelled out very well. And it's not a body of law that is incredibly well developed. And so in order to protect ourselves, we need to start looking at what laws that we already have in the United States and in other countries that actually make sense in terms of how we protect our personal information. Now, if you look at the way that laws are exercised, you'll see in most countries around the world that property law is the strongest form of law. So if you ever have someone damage your property or steal your property, you are likely to take them to a court of law and win. There is a very serious body of law that is on your side. Now, if you are trying to enact human rights law, if you're trying to enact privacy law, unfortunately, enacting human rights law to protect yourself in courts, especially smaller courts, is very difficult. International courts, even more difficult. And privacy law, again, is not very well developed. We don't have national federal privacy law in the United States. And so what that means is our data, our personal information, if we try to just say that, our privacy is a human right, it's more a large scale statement of how we feel about the world, but it's not something that you can actually enforce. So when you see a huge data breach on Facebook or Equifax or, Capital One or Marriott, and your personal information is out there for anyone to obtain, even your social security number, where you live, your live location data, information about your purchases and your credit cards, all of that is out there. To get reparations for that, to get your privacy back, is not only nearly impossible, but you're not really even going to be compensated for those damages. So over the past few years, I've really been thinking, okay, well, our data, although it is intangible, if we can make that a property, we're going to have a lot more success in people actually being able to protect their information. So the first big decision that we had around that was I helped a group of lawyers sue Equifax when they had that huge data breach where, you know, over 150 million of us in the United States had our social security numbers and all of our financial data spilled out on the dark web for anyone to take for free, let alone buy. And we won. And we won because we sued Equifax for property damage. And we said that we actually had a fiscal number at minimum where we were damaged because we now have to spend the rest of our lives paying money for expensive insurance and anti-fraud mechanisms. And the amount of times that we'd probably have to deal with fraud in our lives now would go exponential. And so what did that mean to us? Well, it meant that we've actually been damaged. And so if our data is our property, it's property damage. And because we won, it set a precedent. And recently, Andrew Yang and the Data Dividend team also won a case that went up to a federal court in the state of California that said that Google had damaged consumer property because of a data breach. And because he won that, we now have two high courts, which was the Supreme Court in the state of Minnesota and this federal court in California that say our data is our property. We even have multiple laws in multiple different states that are being considered that say all of our digital assets are our intangible personal property. And what that means is we actually have the ability now to protect ourselves. We have the ability to fight back against big companies who don't take data protection and privacy seriously. And so what we did at Crown Sterling was actually look at what are the fundamental laws that we have in the United States where we can actually have a declaration of our own data rights. How can we start to use the systems we already have in order to protect ourselves and to empower people? And I think what we came up with was pretty great. Don't you agree, Robert?
Yeah, no, I think, and we did it pretty fast because of your good research on the topic and everything, and everybody agreed with it too. I mean, it was a joint effort. I'm really proud of what we've come up with, and you guys are actually the first to hear it here, that we've come out with this data sovereignty bill of rights, and we're going to put out a press release on it and everything in the next few weeks. But you know, we are super excited about this. And so you might ask, what the heck can you do about it? How could anyone actually do something about this? I mean, it's one thing when someone breaks into your house and steals your stuff. If you can get a video capture of that person, you might be able to actually take them and prosecute them, right? But how do you do it with someone who's invisible, the invisible theft that's happening? And it's not black hat people, it's white hat, right? These are literally people that are coming in the front door. You're inviting them in. And how can you actually protect yourself? Well, the answer to that question is actually through encryption. And we do not today use encryption the way that we should be using encryption. We all use it, you know, with our company emails or when we're sending money transfers or Venmos or whatever. We're all using encryption, we just don't even know it. But actually what needs to happen is all of us need to start using encryption to protect our own identities. Like literally be able to protect you. Now, not only to protect it, but also so that you can monetize it. You own it, you can decide what you want to do with it. When I was in college, you know, nobody was talking about, this is a long time ago now, but nobody was talking about things like universal basic income. But today, lots of people are talking about universal basic income. You know, even when I said I was going to be launching my book, this guy started posting on my page. He said, "Oh, I can't wait to get my federal so I can buy your book." And I thought, my federal? What does my federal even mean, right? And I didn't even realize, you know, and I got a check too. Everybody got checks from the government. But that's what he meant by the federal check. That was the, you know, government check for COVID. Well, you know, when you kind of think about it, though, back in the day when I was in college, when people were really broke, they'd go sell their plasma. They'd sell their blood. And that was a very common thing to have happen. And my friends would go and do it. And they'd be like, "Hey, you want to go and sell some blood?" And it was like a thing. Well, I can tell you that today, much more than the blood plasma industry, The data industry is ridiculously huge. It's $2.5 trillion, making data today the world's most valuable asset. The most valuable asset. So think about this for a moment. This means that for the first time in human history, two things are happening. Number one, an asset that is not scarce but infinite is the most valuable asset on the planet. Wait a minute. Isn't it true that gold is scarce, therefore it's valuable? But if data is the most valuable asset in the world, how is it that it's like not scarce? It's completely infinite, and we get more data every single second that goes by. And then the second thing that's happening, that's never happened before, is that for the first time in human history, human beings are creating value, and they don't even have to be working for that value. They're just being rather than doing. So wait a minute. For the first time in human history, data, an infinite asset, is the most valuable thing in the world. And then secondly, that human beings can create value without doing and being. We're all stuck in this world like rats in this plexiglass box, right? Of being human doings rather than human beings. For the first time, human beings have the ability to create value just by being. And that could be such a huge thing. Now, the value of data every year is going up. Now, put this in perspective, okay? $2.5 trillion. We need some perspective on that because we keep throwing that word trillion around, right? That's 12 zeros. But let's think about this further for just a moment. The entire pharmaceutical industry, I'm from the pharmaceutical industry. The entire pharma industry is about $250 billion. Okay? $250 billion. I'm talking about 10 times that size is the data industry. And the pharma industry was the second most profitable industry all through the early 2000s, all through the 1990s. And then price pressures hit them. But you look at big energy, right? Fossil fuels and other energy providers. And then you're looking at the pharmaceutical industry. Data has surpassed all of it by far. And you're creating it. If Facebook were to pay you today for the data that you create, they would have to write you a check for $600. Did you know that? A year. And every year it's doubling. Would you be on there if you knew that it was $600? That's a really great question. So, this whole thing is something that most people just don't even know about. They don't even know that they're creating all this value. And I'm not saying that companies can't have some right to access data if you give them permission to. I think it's perfectly fine. But it's got to be an opt-in process. And that to me is where this whole thing needs to be able to go. First, you need to be able to put a fence around your data so you can protect it so it's just not taken from you so easily. And then secondly, you need to be able to find a way to monetize that data. And what we have done is found a way to blockchain it all in a very, very new kind of encryption technology that is based on old proven encryption, which is one-time pads that have been made new because we made them totally efficient, where in the past they have not been. And they're quantum resistant. So this is a completely new paradigm. I see an incredibly different world coming as a result of what's happening with data and the value of data increasing so much. These large corporate giants are becoming more and more powerful. And there needs to be a process put in place to protect us. So, Brittney, the question I have for you is, what are your thoughts on the ability for consumers to be able to own and decide to sell their own data if and when, and on the terms they want for themselves? On exchange, for example.
I think it's probably the most important step that could happen for individual freedom. And I'll explain why. I'm so glad that you explained to everyone exactly how valuable our data is and how much value we all have just by existing in a digital space every day. If you're walking around with a device in your hand, if you have apps installed on your phone, if you have a computer, that you log into a web browser and you look at websites. You're creating so much data, possibly even billions of data points, depending on how many cookies you're holding on your devices, depending on whether or not you protect your device IDs, depending on how much time you actually spend in your digital life. And that amount of data tells such a clear picture about you that can help everything from advertisers to government policymakers to try to understand your behavior, what will be helpful to you and your community, what brands you might want to buy, as we move into a world that is going to be dictated by the future of advanced predictive analytics and data science, artificial intelligence, smart cities infrastructure. We are going to become data inputs into more and more types of technology and algorithms that are governing the way that our world works. And therefore, us just existing becomes exponentially more valuable as our digital lives take over more of our time. And as our data is actually able to be plugged into more places and achieve more aims and goals for organizations, both private and public, that are trying to use data-driven decision making. I think any company or government department around the world is using data to make all of their decisions internally, externally, strategy, sales, everything you can imagine. So the amount of value that we are creating as individuals, at minimum today, is enough for us to at least feed ourselves and our families every day. We can go to the grocery store and check out with the amount of money that our data earned for us today. That is the reality of the situation. And especially in a year where in America alone, we have 30% of this country not able to buy groceries easily because they don't remember the last time they worked, nor in the future do they have a job prospect because of the coronavirus shutdown and the high rates of unemployment. Think about other countries in the world that already had that rate of unemployment before coronavirus. Think about now the situation that people are in. So it's so important for us to realize that if there is a way for us to, at minimum, make sure that we are able to eat every day, and, as a human rights lawyer, we call that, meeting your basic needs. So your basic needs are really clean water and food. Nothing else is really a basic need. As long as you have clean water and food, that is your basic need. If we can produce a couple dollars a day on our data, which is easily done these days, it could be exponentially more, and it will definitely go up as the days go on and as our societies develop more ways to monetize our data. Then this is one of the most important proposals that exists on Earth for policy, that we could eradicate extreme poverty. And extreme poverty means you can't meet your basic needs, which again is food and clean water. If you can do that with just the value of your data, I don't understand why we're fighting for anything else.
It's amazing when you think about this, Brittney. I mean, there's like 2.7 billion people on social media. 2.7 billion people. That's not far away from, it's probably like 40% or 45% of the global population, right? When you think about that, and you think about $600, which last year was 300 and the year before was 108, it's growing like a weed, right? The amount of money, and there are 4,800 plus companies that broker and buy this data. Those are just brokers, right? So what Crown Sterling has done is we've created a platform on blockchain that is an exchange for people to be able to sell their data to these brokers, and on the terms they want. They can decide, I want it to have this attitudinal, behavioral, psychographic, demographic, but not my personal and not my health data. You can decide how you want to package this up. And this is all going to be part of the Crown Sterling platform for our, encryption technology. The encryption is there for you to protect your most valuable asset. Eventually, your most valuable asset, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all, is going to be the data that you're creating just by being on your computer. And I know that sounds crazy right now, but we have to step forward and think into the future. That's already where things are shifting. And we're all smart if we could see how things are evolving. The world has gone through dramatic change this past year. We've all gotten more and more entrenched in our computer and digital lives. It's now become a huge part of who we are as human beings. And what we want to do is be able to not only protect this data for you, which protects you and your identity and all the information that you would like to protect, but in addition to that, also give you the ability to market and sell that data. And you'll have your own currency. This is where the future's going. And I'm really excited to be a part of it and to work alongside people like Brittney, because we know that there are dramatic limitations to the current world of cryptography today. We absolutely know it. We already know that none of the current blockchains out there are quantum resistant, literally none. Because unless they're using a one-time pad cryptography, that's the only one that's absolutely, truly quantum resistant. As of only a month ago, there was a Swiss company named Quantum Terra AG, or Terra Quantum, AG in Switzerland, that basically said they reversed the signature hash function on advanced encryption standard. Any mathematical equation based or number theory based encryption is going to be completely gone. I mark my words on this, completely gone with quantum computing, and also with new geometrical understanding. So this world is going through a massive flux and shift right now. So, I mean, if you kind of talk through, Brittney, this idea of being able to eradicate hunger, whoever thought that data might be the answer to eradicating hunger? That's kind of amazing.
And that's why I feel like I so often need to kind of, land the plane for people about what a big deal this is. Because you often hear people say things like, oh, why should I care about my privacy? People already have my data, or I'm not going to stop using Facebook. And it's like, no. Like, think about how this system actually works. And if we put protections on our data, it's not like companies are going to stop wanting it. They still will want it. They'll just have to use it on our terms. So even if we just request what a lot of people refer to as a data dividend, which means a small portion of the data that's being monetized would actually be given back to the creator of that data, the producer of that data, the individual, that doesn't change anyone's business model. It just means a small fee is going to the person who made that data. It's really easy to explain. And when you start to be able to collect that data on a moment to moment, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly basis, it's actually a lot of money for most people on the planet. Maybe some people listening to this think a couple dollars a day doesn't matter to you, but to the over 1 billion people that live on less than $2 a day, it certainly does. And to the people that don't know when they're going to get their next paycheck, it certainly does.
Well, it's funny because someone says data is immaterial. I don't know what context they mean that in. Maybe you could say it further, because maybe it is immaterial because it's not tangible, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable. It's highly valuable. And look around, right? There's no tangibility that backs our money today. Nothing. Now, we lost the gold standard in 1973. So there's no gold that backs money. And when you kind of take a step back, you look at something like Dogecoin. I kind of laugh about that because that was sort of a Elon Musk joke. I could kind of see him talking in an office somewhere saying, oh, anything I put a bet behind is going to do really, really great. And watch, I can make it more valuable just by saying it, which of course he can, and more power to him. I'm a big fan of Elon Musk, but I can tell you that, there is nothing right now. Everyone looks at the stock market and says, oh, the stock market's up so much. That's great. Well, it's not really the stock market that's up. It's the dollar that's down. We printed $5 trillion in fake money this year to give out our federal checks. $5 trillion. Our GDP is only around 20. So how the hell can we do that? If you took all the money on the planet and tried to pay back the debt, there's not enough money on the planet just to pay back the debt that all sovereign nations have. The gig's up. So I just kind of look at this and I laugh because people say, oh, Wall Street's doing well. And then, gee, housing is doing well too. Real estate's super high in California. It's selling above ask right now. but that's just because the dollar's been devaluing, because it's been diluted. And everybody in the know knows that. Okay, so people are trying to get into a flight to quality. That's why Bitcoin has gone nuts. That's why other cryptocurrencies have all gone nuts, because people are trying to get out of the sovereign US dollar. And it's not just US dollar. Every nation's been printing money. It has been the government's policy. It's Keynesian economics. Let's print money and make sure there's enough liquidity in society so that we can make sure that during years of elections, we can smooth the curve and not have that be as much of a factor. That's what happened in 1973, and that's what governments have been doing ever since. And deficit spending has continued to go up because all that's happened is we've continued to have super low interest rates to keep everybody appeased and keep all the rats inside the plexiglass.
Absolutely. So it's talks like this, it's conversations like this that prevent us from having the all rats in the plexiglass box future. Because what we've been doing ever since we first touched technology is just using it without questioning how it works. We've been using, our free Facebook account and our free Gmail account without realizing why we would be given a quote unquote free account. It's literally just a way for them to plug into our lives and take all of our information about everything that we're doing, everyone we're interacting with, our photos, our videos, our contacts, our live location. I mean, it's a lot that we've been giving away. This hasn't been free at all. It's just, an elaborate ruse to make it look like it's free. But
don't you feel like, Brittney, don't you feel also that like if we could eradicate hunger, that's sort of like wiping out the challenge of the lower echelons of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I mean, how could society change? Our entire educational system is based on scarcity so that people can become hyper-specialized to make money, because the more specialized we are, the more money we can command in a job. So we don't really learn true educations anymore. If we want to study biology, we have to be a nanotechnology, biology, mitochondrial DNA specialized, super specialized person, or stem cells, super specialized. And what that does is it takes us away from being able to ever be truly philosophical and think about the human condition, because we're just stuck. We can't even relate to people. Everything is polarized because someone who goes into math is a completely different person than someone who goes into art, who's a totally different person who goes into natural sciences. And then even within there's striations within each of those different disciplines. I see if we can actually create a new way of thinking about human being rather than human doing. Think about all the things that we could all do that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do. We could experience multiple careers. We could experience multiple different experiences. We can travel, right? We're not going to be stuck to one place. We don't have to be pigeonholed into, these smaller striated versions of these plexiglass boxes that society puts us into. And I see this as a huge shift that's coming, and it is infinite. And it's time for us as individuals to have control of that. That's what I am so excited about related to this, and why I see this as being a shift that could literally change the world. And when we look at cryptocurrency today, cryptocurrency is very exciting because it's going mad. What people don't understand is that it's a disruptor not only of currencies, it's a disruptor of governments. There's a reason why India has now announced that they're making it illegal to have cryptocurrency. Now in the US, it's too late. It's too big to fail now. It's $1 trillion. It's not going to be happening, because all that'll happen is as soon as they try to put legislation against it, there'll be a mountain of money that goes against that legislation, and then there'll be a whole new slate of congressmen that get elected in the next cycle, right? That will be supportive of keeping cryptocurrency. I'm telling you, I know this game. I played the game, and I have seen it as a pharmaceutical CEO, and I know exactly the game. And this is how things work in Washington. If you're not at the table, guess what? You're on the menu. You're dinner. That's how they roll. Okay. I mean, I've been through many meetings like this with congressional leaders, and I can tell you this is just a fact. So it's time to wake up. And it's not just wake up in the spiritual sense, which I, am very much an advocate for as well, but wake up to where you can actually be a human being rather than a human doing. What would you do, Brittney, differently? What would you have maybe done differently if you didn't have to be focused all the time on, providing for your very basic needs?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, that's I was lucky enough to spend many years doing that. When I was able to be both in grad school, living on student loans, which and also working for the human rights NGOs that I cared about. There was a period of time where, because I was both studying and working, I had at least that income without having a salaried job. So I just volunteered for all of the organizations that I cared about the most. I spent most of my career working for, I would say, negative money because it cost me money to do the job with no pay. But I was doing everything that I loved. I was working for the human rights organizations that couldn't afford to pay me, but that I really cared about what their mission was. And I would have continued to do that if I, would have been in a financial position to do so, but I wasn't. I had to pay my rent and bills. And so I had to go start working for a for-profit company. And the first company I ever worked for was Cambridge Analytica. And we can all see how well that went. So, I would spend a lot more time just working for positive social impact, not thinking about how to make ends meet, because I would know that, the basics were covered and therefore I could do what I was passionate about. And I think a lot of people around the world would love to just do what they're passionate about and not worry about, how are they going to pay their next bill.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I know this is a new concept for a lot of people to probably hear and to comprehend. I'll say that much. But this could impact lots of people. And it could impact everybody that has data collected on them right now, which is virtually everyone. Mm-hmm. So for you to think, it only is going to apply to a small percentage of people. No, it doesn't only apply to a smaller percentage of people. It applies to everybody. You'll be able to capture your data. It doesn't matter if you make $20,000 a year or $500,000 a year. Your data has value. And it's something that's like your credit score. You want to kind of maintain and keep up so that it has a value, right? But the only way that you can actually capture that value is by being able to put your own fence around it. If you leave all your tools outside and then people can just come and take them, right? Those tools that you paid good money for, they're going to be gone, right? And then they're worthless to you. So this is a completely different, it's a sea change in paradigm on how to look at how value is created. And for people that, and I get this all the time, people say, we need free energy, Robert. Why don't you make free energy? It's like, okay, well, let me just find my button under my desk to push on the free energy button. I have a free energy button somewhere. Oh, no, I don't have that button. Crap, right? But I do know people that are creating free energy already. It already exists. There's lots of companies that already have free energy. I can tell you that right now. The fact is, how do you capture it in a way? One of my companies is going to be able to create free energy, clean hydrogen. It's a phenomenal company called Thrival Tech. Look it up. It is a phenomenal company, and it has found a way to capture hydrogen amid methane, which allows the storage capacity to be much smaller, and it also allows for you to be able to, run it on any kind of combustion, totally clean, completely clean energy. I'm telling you right now, there are a lot of clean energy approaches. Now, solar energy, also pretty damn clean. You could say, well, there's a carbon footprint on the battery and all of that. But the fact is, data is the true free energy. Because when you think about it, we all have to pay our bills to get energy, right? We have to capture energy somehow. Data is over unity. It's over unity. It's creating value just by existing. That is a totally new paradigm shift. So if you want to be in line with free energy, track and manage and control and be sovereign over your data. That's going to be a trend. And this is maybe the first time you're hearing stuff like this. If it is, that's great. You're going to hear a lot more because this is something that we're very passionate about, and you're going to see a lot more about this topic. Any final comments you'd like to make, Brittney? And thank you so much for being with me today.
Absolutely. Well, I just love everyone here to start to think about these issues every day. I mean, most of us, especially over this past year, have been leading a nearly completely digital life. And so start to think about what it is you're giving away, because there are plenty of technologies that not only exist now, but even better ones that are about to come out that will help you protect your data. And if you want to sell it safely and anonymously on an open market so that you can pay your groceries with it, pay your bills, then you're going to be able to do that. Some examples today that I'd love for you guys to check out. You could use Brave browser, which pays you for searching and doesn't sell your data even, instead of Google Chrome, for instance. You could use voice.com, which pays you for the content you create on social media, as opposed to just putting your content into Facebook. You could use Signal, which just integrated with MobileCoin for some encrypted texting instead of using WhatsApp, which is also owned by Mark Zuckerberg. So these are just like things to think about. And, if you've never gone through this exercise, what might be helpful for you is to look at the terms and conditions of one of the apps on your phone and see what you've actually agreed to. One of the apps that you use all the time, and go and see, because you'll find out that what you're probably giving away is access to all of your contacts, your photos, your videos, the ability for that app to turn on your video or your microphone whenever they'd like, access to your live location. I mean, some of that stuff you could turn off and still use the app. Or if it's an app that you don't use that often, maybe you should delete it and not keep it installed all the time. But just start to think about these things in your day-to-day life. And, there's going to be a lot of huge opportunities for you to start monetizing that data instead of giving it away for free. And when you're monetizing it, you'll be safe. You'll have a transparent ability for you to actually understand where it's going. No one's going to trick you into giving it away. So Robert, maybe you could close with telling people, where they can look out for some of that, and maybe point them to, some places where they could do further reading, I guess.
Sure. You guys
we've said a lot of things today.
You'll see a lot here, but crownsterling.io, and you can learn more about it. Just click the learn more button. I'm still kind of laughing at one of the comments that was on here that said that I hope I look like as good as Robert when I'm 60. And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not 60.
That always helps.
I'm only 52. I'm not even 52 yet. I'll be 52 in a few weeks. But
happy early birthday.
Thank you. And again, I just want to say in closing, thank you so much, Brittney. You're amazing. And for those of you, because I've been getting a lot of questions about it, are interested in my book, Philomath, it will be available next week on Amazon Kindle. And so I just had so many recent discoveries. We wanted to put all of the stuff in there. And then finally we had to say, okay, enough, stop. So it's 304 pages of mathematics and discovery and philosophy and art. I hope you like it. Talal Gwanem and I wrote it together. He was a professor from academia, so we really put a lot of our work and study and research into it over the last several years. And then also, if you are interested in Egypt, please go to the link that is in my link tree on my profile. So you can see it in there and apply. We've got a lot of people that are applying. So please write down why you think that you should be able to go on this trip with us. And we're going to go in October 18th to the 29th. And then one last thing, on May 8th, I'm doing a special on the secrets of the pyramids with Billy Carson, who you may have seen I did an interview with not long ago. And there's an Eventbrite for it. It's a 4-hour in-depth workshop on the Great Pyramid and the math of it and everything. And Billy had arranged this and put it all together. I'm very excited to do it with him. So with all of that, love you all and have a great day. And remember, data's infinite and it's yours and it's the new free energy. And thank you so much, Brittney. We'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.